I would like to share with you some preliminary thoughts following the ceasefire understanding reached between the United States and Iran. Today is April 8th, and at this point I would like to say that one thing is very clear, and that is this whole ceasefire is very fragile. There are many ins and outs that, of course, are still have to be cleared up, but I could say a couple of things at this point quite decisively. First, it is very fragile. It may collapse, and we should definitely take that into consideration. The second thing is understanding that following my previous briefings, as I said, since the beginning of the war, I refer to the war as a poker game. And in each stage, I've basically shown how the players were playing their cards and raising their bets accordingly. The Iranian regime came to this point from a weak position in the sense that the Iranian regime realized that in the end of the day, the impact of the accumulating damage it has sustained thus far will bring the regime to the point of no return, in the sense that it will be almost impossible for the regime to resume and continue its control. At the same time, President Trump, in his way, was also looking for a way to climb down of the tree, and particularly the very significant threat that he was making 24 hours ago. In that sense, there has been some conjunction of interests of the sides involved. There is another significant thing that has to be constantly looked at, and that is the story of Lebanon. While the Iranians argue that the ceasefire agreement includes immediate ceasefire in Lebanon in the war between Israel and Hezbollah, President Trump made it clear that it does not include that. Meanwhile, as I'm doing this briefing, Israel continues its attack on the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and actually in the last couple of hours, reportedly, Israel has significantly increased its attack on different sites and locations of the Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Iranian regime cannot allow itself to lose the Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Hezbollah in Lebanon is the most powerful proxy the Iranian regime has in its possession. That proxy has been significantly weakened following the October 7 attack, in a process that I have described earlier as the domino effect. So one of the most significant things to follow is to see the inner relation, I would say, between the Lebanese arena and the Hormuz Strait and the American-Iranian ceasefire agreement. At this point, many people are already starting to sum up who won and who lost. I think that this is very, very premature. In the end of the day, we will have to look and see what will be the final outcome on the ground of the negotiations between the sides. We should bear in mind that the United States continues to keep a massive military presence and reportedly also increasing military presence in the region. So I think that it will be very immature at this point to start doing these conclusions and so on both sides. And one last thing in that regard that is very significant to understand, it has to do with something which is part and parcel of the region, and this is the concept of triumph and victory, triumph and defeat. As expected, not surprisingly, the Mullah regime obviously rushed to announce victory. From the Mullah regime perspective, as I have been explaining since day one of the war, the fact that it will be able to stand on its feet following the war, though it has sustained a very significant damage across the board, that fact alone would be marked by the Mullah regime as a triumph, as a victory. It's not surprising right there. The big question, of course, is how will it be received and viewed by the regional players? A very brief preliminary screening of today's, at least, some Arab commentators in the region actually reveals that they are not buying this Iranian marketing of triumph. They are, to a large extent, accurately indicating the fact that in the end of the day, the Mullah regime has sustained significant damages across the board. Just the same, we have to look further down the road, and it has to do tightly connected to the outcome in the end of the day practically speaking, and I emphasize practically speaking, the outcome of any negotiation slash ceasefire slash any kind of agreement that will be signed between the United States and the Iranian regime. So I would say, to sum up my presentation at this point today, that we should wait and see how things will evolve. We should remind ourselves that this ceasefire agreement is very fragile. One of the major reasons for the fragility is, as I said before, the fact that the Iranians are trying to connect the ceasefire agreement with the situation in Lebanon, with the war between Israel and the Hezbollah. As of now, assuming that the trajectory of the Israeli-Hezbollah war is going to increase and even maybe intensify, one could therefore expect that the odds for the collapse of this already fragile ceasefire agreement, the odds are accordingly increasing as well. So therefore, we are in a very, very preliminary phase. We'll have to see how things will evolve down the road and remind ourselves that in the end of the day, the conclusions must be done in accordance with the outcomes on the ground. I'm Avi Melamed, founder of Inside the Middle East ITME Institute. Thank you for watching.